Laura Knight's Cassiopean experiments, often associated with the Cassiopeia material, involves the exploration of consciousness, spirituality, and the nature of reality. Through various methodologies, including channeling and psychic experiments, Knight and her collaborators sought to communicate with higher intelligences, particularly a group of entities referred to as the Cassiopeans. The primary aim was to gain insight into the metaphysical questions, the nature of existence, and human development. The experiments included multi-session discussions that cover topics like multidimensional realities, free will, and the influence of higher dimensional beings on humanity. Knight recorded these sessions, which often contained profound philosophical and esoteric insights, and these records became part of a larger body of work that aimed to explore consciousness beyond conventional scientific understanding. The overall tone of the experiments reflect a blend of skepticism and deep inquiry into the nature of consciousness and our place in the universe. Laura Knight began her communication with the Cassiopeans in 1994. She is still in communication with the Cassiopeans to this day. If you would like a better understanding of the Cassiopeans and their impact on humanity, I would highly suggest checking out the Wave series by Laura Knight, the Cassiopean Forum, which a link will be provided in the description box below, or purchasing the book that I personally am reading from that contains all of the transcripts and conversations between Laura and the Cassiopeans. The Cassiopeans base the soul's evolution and consciousness on the spiritual template known as the Law of One. The Law of One is also known as the raw material. It is a series of philosophical texts that emerged from a series of channeling sessions conducted by Carla Rucker, Don Elkins, and Jim McCarthy in the early 1980s. The sessions involved channeling a consciousness known as Ra, who claimed to be a collective of extraterrestrial beings from the sixth density. The key concepts in the Law of One are unity and oneness. The central tenet of the Law of One is that all beings are fundamentally interconnected and are expressions of the same universal consciousness. The phrase, "we are all one," encapsulates this idea, emphasizing that unity is the essence of existence. It also covers the densities of existence. The material describes the cosmos as composed of multiple densities or levels of existence. Each density represents a stage of spiritual evolution, with humans currently experiencing a third density, which is characterized by lessons in love, understanding, and most importantly, making choices. We also seek to understand in the Law of One soul evolution. According to Ra, souls undergo a process of evolution through these densities, learning and growing through various incarnations. The choice between these paths influences one's spiritual evolution and the experiences one encounters in life. There's also discussions of the role of free will. Free will is considered sacred, and individuals are encouraged to explore and make choices regarding their spiritual development without interference from higher beings. If you would like more information on the Law of One, please make sure to check out the material for yourself. A link to all resources will be posted down in the description box below. But for now, let's get on with the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back with my friend Paula. If you're new here, I'm going to be posting down below in the description box the other two videos regarding this subject. As we laughed about last week, we started on part 7.
Yep, we just skipped right ahead.
Right, we just leapfrogged to the interesting stuff. And now we're going back and we're looking at these articles that Laura Knight has written regarding the Holy Grail, the Nordic Covenant. And the reason why we are going through these articles, and I'll tag this down below, is because the Cassiopeans have a lot to say about the Cathars and the Knights Templar. And I've covered the Cathars before when I was going through the missing books of the Bible. They are very much associated with the Gospel of Magdalene. They're not the Gnostics, but they have very similar belief systems to the Gnostics. And if you guys were with me when I started doing this, we know that the original Christianity was more Gnostic based than what we see now. What we see now is more a Paulinian, which is from Paul, who most of the New Testament was letters written by Paul. So we know that the original belief system, it makes sense, right? Because what is Gnostic? It comes from the word gnosis, which is a Greek word that means inner knowing, right? That's what Gnostic means. Whereas ideo is the opposite of that, which is outer knowing. So ideo would be like book smarts, would be like knowledge that you learn from academics, whereas gnosis is wisdom. It's your own knowing. No one can give you gnosis, right? That's
it's like it's life experience, and
yeah, and it goes back to Paula, when we look at like the original teachings of Yeshua, otherwise known as Jesus, it's very much in line with like yogic philosophy. Identical. We're like, no one's going to save you. You have to save yourself. You have to go inward. You have to deal with the friction. You have to really do your work. We call it shadow work now in modern times. That's what he was teaching. Even the scene we see in the Bible where he clears the 7 demons. Well, those are the 7 chakras, right? That's the balancing of the chakras, right? That's Reiki. And we know, like in what I love about now, there are literal demons out there. We know that, the Lizzies, there are literal like entities that are demonic. But for a lot of people, the word demon in most cases is going to be your own issues, your own shadow work, which is, what does demon come from? What is the etymology? Well, demon comes from the word demonstrate, to demonstrate. So a demonstrator is a teacher. And so your own personal demons, your own struggles are your biggest teachers, right? That's your shadow side, right? And that's not to take away from literal demons, but, as far as like the healing of the self comes from this Gnostic belief system, which is very much Eastern philosophy. Anyway, it's been around. It was around long before Jesus was, that's all. It very much mirrors the Vedic text of India. And so the Cathars adapted more of that belief system. And so the Cathars also, from what I understand, probably knew a little bit more about like the law of one, even though they might not have called it that, because they sustained from a lot of things that are more Lizzie induced and more service to self. And so it's no shock to me that the church got rid of them, annihilated them. Now, with that being said, with the Knights Templar, the Holy Grail, there's a huge connection here with the Nordic Covenant. And so we really have to understand what the Nordic Covenant is in order to understand what the Cassiopeans are saying about the Cathars, the Knights Templar, and the Holy Grail. Now, with that being said, too, we also know darkness cannot create anything. Darkness just can't create. Only thing that can create is the light. And so for some people, they're going to have maybe a predisposition to think maybe some of this stuff is dark, and it might have turned dark at some point, but its origin story is of the light.
Yeah.
Right? And so we have to, because the darkness can't create, it can just steal and invert.
Yeah. And that's what it does.
You want to add to that, Paula, before we get into the article?
Yeah, no, I just think it's just really fascinating that a lot of Yeshua's teachings really relate to the whole Yoga Sutras and everything, because, and I mean, like, as far as we know, he did go to India and study those teachings as well, didn't he? Is that what he did? Do that?
The Cassiopeans said no, that he actually didn't.
Oh,
but
okay.
But they're probably there, and that's because I always thought he did too. But that's what we can look back at that time too. There's always like these eras of time, these time periods where obviously more than one soul was here teaching. So I think what they're saying is we're seeing a bunch of different teachers teaching the same thing. That got wrapped up into one person, into the story of one person,
Gotcha.
And Paula, they say, what's that saying? If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Isn't that the basis of spirituality? Like, no one's, if you want to be saved right, you got to do it yourself, right? You do. You can't rely on some dude in a black robe to like anoint you into heaven. Like, no, you got to do that yourself. And to remind people, one of the tenets of the negative side of the service to self side in the law of one is a pecking order, is that there's a hierarchy. And so we see that in a lot of religions, right? We see a priest, we see someone who's ordained. That's all negatively polarized. Monarchy, government, we see that, in a democracy or a republic where someone's being voted by the people and then they only have a limited term, that would not be considered a pecking order because it's a social, or it's a memory complex where everybody's saying, we want you now, and then you step down in a few years and somebody else steps up, right? But when someone's like born into like a bloodline or
the royal families and things like that,
that's the same as religion, where it's negatively polarized, where we all have our different roles, like in the positive world, like, take Mr. T, for example, or, we'll say Kennedy, whoever. We all have our different roles. And even though they might be more in the spotlight, every role is equally valuable and done for a reason. So I hope that makes sense to people. And again, if you're new here, I always play a video in the beginning to kind of explain this stuff. The law of one really helped me like snap out of a lot of programming, because it's common sense basically, and to see where there's manipulation. And then the Cassiopeans are kind of an offshoot of the law of one. But speaking of healing, speaking of self-healing, I almost forgot, because tomorrow, Paula, we have an open house for the Esoteric Academy. So we've gotten a few emails of people who want to come and to the open house, which is fantastic. But once again, tomorrow, Friday, the 23rd, 2025 at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be on around 4:30 for people who want to hop on early and ask any questions. The Esoteric Academy, we're having an open house. And so this is, Paula, we haven't even been open for a year yet. We're still such a company, and so many people I think, are curious, because what we're doing is we're taking all of my knowledge from India, all of Paula's knowledge through quantum healing, and we're packaging it in like a virtual mystery school where people can sign on and learn and start this journey themselves. And we only want to bring master teachers on. So you're getting the highest caliber of teachers in different lineages. And we have exercise classes, because exercise is the foundation. That's in your body. That's really bringing vitality to the chakras. So I personally have taken modern exercise classes like strength training, bar, dance, walking, and have incorporated the traditional teachings through yoga into these other exercises to make it more accessible to people, to everybody. And so we have an open house. So if you would like the link, if you would like to come to the open house, we're going to be doing a strength training class. You don't have to have any weights. If you don't want weights, it's an all levels class. Let's send it to info@theesotericacademy.com.
Admin. Okay,
admin. Oh, admin. I've been putting info.
Oh yeah,
admin. So guys, if you emailed the wrong email address, admin.
Just try again.
Try again, admin@theesotericacademy.com, or you can email me at esotericatlanta@gmail.com. I'll send you the link as well. You have to email us, guys, because we can't put it in the comments.
We can't post this link anywhere. Yeah.
No, that's dangerous. That's putting our students at risk, because it's an open link. And so if you want to come to the class, you've got to send us that email either to Paula or myself. Please put open house in the subject line so that we see the email right away, so we can get you that link right away. Anything else you want to add, Paula? Paula's going to be leading a meditation after we're done, guys. Anything about that you want to say?
I've just been working on my little script for that, and it's just going to be focusing on integrating what we're going to be doing, because we're going to be working on the axis of the body, and just helping to integrate all those movements and things like that into the meditation afterwards. And I'm really excited to join in on this one, and it's going to be really good.
It kind of adds a different layer, Paula, because we've talked about like prana, apana, upward flowing energy, downward. That's like 101, like the hatha yoga. Hatha is upward, down, like moving your energy up and down. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. But there's also a push and a pull that comes from the middle line of the body. So we've talked about this type of energy. Now we're looking at this energy as well. So the pushing away from the axis and the pulling back into the axis. We even see that when people run, right? When you're running, there's a push and a pull into the axis of the body, which of course is where Sushumna is. Sushumna is the meditative light of Kundalini, of Christ consciousness. It's where the chakras live, or on the axis of the body. So this is a really important topic to talk about. And you see it again in all forms of movement, all forms. It's the spinal cord, it's everything. And so, and our motivation with the Esoteric Academy too is at least my motivation as well, is I don't really want you going to the gym or going to an exercise class to beat yourself up or to try to
No
like abuse, as a disorder, or, you know, I'm not
punishment
even
or anything.
I'm
Yeah.
not even focused on like the six packs or the biceps, or that's going to happen anyway. Like, you're going to tone up anyway. Like, that's just how the body responds to the work,
Mhm.
right? I want to change your perspective on what you're doing. Instead of burning calories, let's talk
Yeah.
about burning karma. Let's
Yeah.
talk about what's coming up and that what information. And I feel like once the Western world changes their perspective, it's going to really make a lot of people healthier
Oh,
individuals.
absolutely. Be very life-changing. And I think also just becoming aware, because you talk a lot about the doshas, and just becoming more aware of that as well, because so being very like predominant in Vata, I do like lighter foods. Like I love freshly squeezed juices. I love salads and fruit and all of that kind of stuff. But when I eat too much of that stuff, I get very weak.
Yeah,
And then that's where I've kind of struggled with exercise. And I'm lucky that I always have stayed pretty slim. Like, obviously having children and stuff has, put on weight and lost weight and stuff like that. But I've always been pretty slim because I've always been a small eater. I've never been a big eater, but I have always kind of eaten more of the light foods. But then, as a kind of a side effect of that, is I've always felt very weak, and I've hated that so much. But since I've been doing your exercises and remembering about the doshas, because I got diagnosed when I was about 19 or 20. I went and saw an Ayurvedic doctor and he told me my type. But I just kind of forgot about it and just live life as you do.
yeah,
But more recently, I've just really been, and also because we're starting to get into winter over here in Australia, so I've been getting more into like the kind of potatoes and sweet potatoes and pumpkins and soups and kind of more heartier kind of meals and stuff. And I just have noticed a huge difference in my exercise routine. I have more energy and strength to be doing the exercises, and I'm just feeling a lot stronger. And it's been a really nice feeling because, yeah, I tend to just eat too lightly a lot of the time, and then I just feel weak and I don't have the energy or the strength to do
and that's
exercise. So,
that's Vata for them the same way, because you like what you
yeah,
like, so you crave what you predominantly are, which is going to be detrimental to
yes,
your health. And so Vata
yes.
is
And I just really want to emphasize that to people that are watching and that are interested in doing the exercise. Stop worrying about your weight because I always worried about my weight, and I was eating so lightly all the time because I was too scared to put on weight, and I was like, oh, I don't want to eat too many carbs and things like that. But then you feel weak, but like, I mean, depending on your dosha type, eat right for your dosha type.
yeah.
And then the exercise is going to be so much more enjoyable and more powerful, I believe, and you're going to transform your body in a much better, healthier way. And like you say, the fitter, healthier, better looking body is going to come from the
Yeah,
commitment of
it's
the
just gonna,
exercise.
that's not even,
Just
you
a
don't even have to
side
worry
effect.
about that. That's just gonna happen anyway.
Yeah,
And with the
yeah,
doshas too, and with weight, like for me as a teacher, when someone is overweight, that informs me that there's an imbalance. So
yeah,
that's my pushback to like body positivity. You should always be positive about your body. But if you're
absolutely.
overweight, you have to acknowledge that there's some karma there that we need to
There's an
work on.
imbalance
There's
going
an
on. It
imbalance.
doesn't mean anything wrong with you.
No,
It's just you're out of balance. So then
yeah.
check in, and are you eating right for your body type, you know?
Are you emotionally eating?
Yeah.
Are you disassociating from that and falling into excuses about, well, it's my DNA, or it's my, a lot of personal trainers are putting out, no, it's not your DNA. If your parents were
Yeah.
overweight and you're overweight, you can blame it on them, but what you've inherited is bad habits. Not,
Yeah.
we're not programmed
And
to be
and I
overweight, right? Like,
guarantee, if your parents are overweight now, if you go back and look at the photos of them when they were back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, I guarantee you they were majority of them would be really slim and healthy, because it's just bad habits of that have just happened over the years.
and we've
And it's
been
so easy
programmed
to fall into.
with this like stupid food pyramid. Like, that's the stupidest thing ever. Like,
Oh,
an apple a day does not keep the doctor away for everyone. An apple a day
no,
for me would actually cause a doctor to have, because I'm Vata and the apple is a Vata food. And so
yeah, it's
so
going
what
to cause
Paul is saying,
issues.
like, if you're kapha based, you're probably
Then
gonna
an
feel
apple a day would be great.
great for you. You're probably going to
Yeah.
feel more energy drinking juices, eating the salads, and eating because you're kapha based, and so it's pulling the vata energy in. But if you're vata and you're eating too much vata foods, you're going to disassociate from your body because vata is cerebral; it pulls up. And if you're wafy like we are, and you're vata, you're already in that. You're in that
Yeah.
naturally. So we got to pull you back down. So what Paula is realizing is the more heartier foods that she eats for her body,
Yeah.
the
I'm
better
feeling better now.
she's more grounded, and she's probably going to end up like being at a healthy weight. She's probably not going to
Yeah.
go overweight because she's actually giving her body
What I
the,
need.
the
Yeah.
balance for it to run functionally within its dosha. And I'll show you guys if you're curious about this. Again, we have a manual up on the Esoteric Academy that goes through all the
Yes.
doshas to give you kind of a little template of what that is, because it is life changing, and that's also going to determine the exercises that you do sometimes. That's why
Mhm.
maybe you have a friend in your life that started running and lost a lot of weight, looks good, feels good. You tried it and it backfired because you're probably a
Yeah.
different dosha. It's
Yeah.
not one size fits all. And so we also have the Alchemy of Movement course on the where I go through all the different like energies and what exercises create, green beans and bananas both have nutritional value,
Hmm.
but different nutritional value, right? And so we have to figure out what we need at what time. Same with exercise, running, yoga, dance, strength training, all give a different chemical reaction in the body, a different
Yeah.
nutritional value in the body for the body to consume nutrients through the work. And depending on what nutrient that is, there are people out there that are trying to do this banana diet where all they eat is bananas. Don't do that. That's the worst thing you can do for your health. You can
Oh
eat a
God.
banana in a day if it's good for your dosha, but don't sit
Yeah.
there because that's too much. It's too much. Too much of a good thing is a
And
bad thing.
a banana doesn't have every single nutritional
No,
thing that we need, It's not a whole food. It's just a
no.
healthy food within itself as a snack.
And it's good for like vatas. Like a banana is
Yeah.
something that vatas typically, it's also good for potassium. So if you do a lot of high intense cardio, it's good to have that potassium. So there's electrolytes. So there's different, food is fuel and exercise is fuel.
Mhm.
But just like you go to the gas station or the petrol station, as you guys say, and you have to pick the
Yeah.
different which one you use. Same with food, depending on what your car needs, depending on what you need.
Yeah.
And so that I've said it, if I could help just one person with all the 19 years that I've learned, if I can help one person break free of this matrix and take their power back through understanding these old ancient teachings, then I feel like I've accomplished
Well,
something.
you've helped me immensely, and I can guarantee you there are quite a lot of people on the academy that will say the same thing to you, Bryce. And we are all very grateful to you because you have helped us so much.
Well, it saved me. It saved me. And I feel like in the speaking of the service to others path of light, service to self path, they'll gatekeep information. But the service
Yeah.
other path, we share information. Think about like when you read a good book or you found a great, you want to go tell your friends,
Yeah.
right? You want to tell your friends. You want to, oh my God, have you guys read this? Or you find a good hairdresser. Oh my God, you guys, I found the best hairdresser. Like you want to share that with your friends. And so when this started to really affect me, my goal was to always share it with people because the more empowered we all become, the less control the darkness has.
Yep. Absolutely.
So yeah, if you want to join us, and again, you guys, I don't want with our live classes, there everybody will be on screen. I will be recording, but the camera will be just on me. It won't be on anybody in the class. Again, we would never do that. I would never put any student up on camera. I would exercising, in conversation, just but exercising. I would never do that because I don't want to. That's a boundary for me. I want to keep our students' privacy private. I want to make sure that they feel safe being vulnerable and that they're not going to be filmed. So it's on me. The camera's on me. But if you're still nervous about exercising in a Zoom group, you can always turn your camera off. Oh,
Sorry,
speaking of
that was
camera.
my cat and my dog. They're just they're just playing, the cat and the dog, and they're just
and
getting
that's
a
and
little bit
that's life
crazy.
too, right?
Yeah.
That's how life is. We have kids around. You guys see that in the videos. Robbie's usually laying on the sofa. Sometimes he
Yeah.
passes gas and you can see him like jump up and look at his butt. That's just how
He
life
was like, what's that smell?
it always takes him by surprise. And then he looks at
Yeah.
you like you did it to him. Like, no, bro, that's you. So you guys see that. You see that, and that's just life. And we want you to be excited about exercise. We don't want you to feel like you are being punished or punishing yourself. We do not
Yeah.
condone disordered eating, or we don't want unhealthy, but we want you to see like where, if you're overweight, okay, we have to figure this out. Like, where is there an imbalance? Going on a
Mhm.
diet is not going to, it's just a temporary
Oh
solution
my gosh,
for
yeah.
long-term
It
costs.
well, I've been learning since reading more about Ayurveda how diets are actually damaging our metabolism. And I didn't realize that until just recently. And it's really bad. And the restrictive eating, it's only worsening things for us. So
Yeah,
this whole diet craze that we've gone through over the last how many years it's been going on is not helping at all. And so the Ayurvedic way to increase your metabolism is to get that digestive fire, really supporting that in your belly. And so exercise is a great way to do that. And then having the right spices for your dosha, adding
yeah,
cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom. I love cardamom.
yeah.
I even add that into my smoothies and stuff.
And it's going to be
But
different for every person. So what works
yeah,
for you might not work for your spouse or for your friend or for
exactly.
your kids, because you have different karmas, you have different dispositions. And that's so true, Paula. And when you start to eat for your dosha, I think your relationship with food changes.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people think they're eating healthy, but they're not eating for their dosha, so they're not getting the nutrients that they need. And so their body is
Hmm.
craving, so it gets food, but then it doesn't know what to do with the food because it doesn't need that energy, so it just stores it as fat. And then and then um and then they feel the need to snack because their body's trying
Yep.
to find that nutrient it needs. Sorry,
Yeah, that's
so,
right.
and so
Because it's not feeling fulfilled. Your body's not feeling fulfilled. Yeah.
sometimes if we just start eating of the right dosha, the weight will just fall off anyway because you're not craving food
Yeah,
like
and
you
you'll
used
find that like I crave sugar a lot, but since I've been eating more kind of um like grounding kind of foods, like I haven't been craving for sugar like hardly at all, which has been great. I'm like, oh, this is unusual for me.
to. Yeah,
And
it's
cinnamon's
also
another good one for that as well, helping to reduce the sugar cravings and things like that.
right. And so you guys, please just understand, if you have been someone who's been struggling with your weight your whole life, you might be kappa based, which is a common trait, but that's okay because we can figure it out. And that's so the thing is, just don't ignore it. Like, let's figure out what's going on, and let's go ahead and just burn this karma up so you
Yeah.
can feel free. And that's what we want to do at the academy, is like, I want you to exercise because you love it and because you're moving your body and you're creating vitality in your energetic body, you're burning karma, you're doing your active meditation, not because I want you to necessarily look good in a bathing suit. Like, that's stupid. Like, who cares? Like, I want you to awaken to who you are potentially in this life and get rid of all,
Yeah,
we know
and
a lot
feel
about mind
good.
control. There's so much mind control in the world. Like, we know,
Yeah.
let's get rid of that when it comes to nutrition and it comes to your body and it comes to you awakening spiritually. Do not punish yourself. Exercise should not be a punishment. You should be disciplined to do it, even when you don't
Yeah.
feel like doing it, but it should never be a punishment, right? It should be an exploration of vitality, right? And so it should be a way to feel your heart, feel your oxygen. We have stale oxygen in the body. So if we raise our heart rate, that stale oxygen can exit the body. So fresh oxygen can come in. That's the pranayama. Prana is life force. Yama is extension, extending the life's capacity through breath. There's so much magic in this moment. And so please, if you're interested, we'd love to have you on Friday. It's a free class to try it. If you try and you
Mhm.
don't like it, no big deal. Or maybe you're interested, but you don't like us and you want to find another teacher, that's great too.
Yeah,
You find the teacher
that's
that works
fine.
for you. We are going to have, right now, we have a video up by Cindy, but our goal is to have, I know Cindy's going to do some more stuff. We have some more people on schedule to do some stuff. We're going to bring a bunch of master teachers in. We're only going to have master teachers so that you are getting the best quality information for each lineage
Yeah.
that's represented. So, all right, should we hop now into the Cassiopeans?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So again, you guys, we've been going through this article, and I was telling Paulo when we signed on that part 7, which is the one we started with, to me was the most interesting. Part
Yeah, it
one, we
was
did it
very
didn't
fascinating.
didn't find part one that interesting, but we kind of need
Yeah.
that information. Like sometimes there's just needed information um, to really understand the bigger picture of what the C's are talking about. Because sometimes what the C's say, I mean, I love the C's because they can be snarky too. They're a little sassy sometimes. I love they just say discover, like when they won't answer the
Yeah.
question, discover. But sometimes they answer in very short, they just give like one word. And so I appreciate Laura for writing these articles to kind of summarize the bigger picture so that the
Yeah.
transcripts read a little bit differently. So this is part two.
Mhm.
The Grail quest and the destiny of man, the terror of history. So should I start, Paula, with this
Yeah, sure.
article? All right. We'll see how far we get, guys, because this is a long article. I was telling you, depending on how long this goes, we might have to divide this up into two sections. But the article
Mhm.
will be down in the description box below, so you can read it for yourself. Okay. In this present, ooh, hold on, because I am 42. Hold on one second, guys. It's a little blurry for me. In this present period of history, that we observe an upsurge in esoteric interest, much of which includes, as is usual in such eras, false teachings and cunning disinformation. I have a lot to say about that too. At the same time, the seeker is being offered the data for the straight gate. It is up to each individual to understand the significance is what is being offered here and to get down to work. Many workers are needed in this time in the same way physicians are needed on the battlefield. After all, a doctor is of little use in a society of people who are in a state of robust health. So
Mhm.
I love that the false teachings and cunning disinformation. I've
Yeah.
talked about this at length in the spiritual world. 99% of the people you see on YouTube claiming to be spiritual are giving you false teachings,
Mhm.
mostly because most of these people are in their ego, right? I do not, I mean, I don't take, there's a lot of channelers. Most channelings I don't take seriously except for like the Law of One and the Cassiopeans and a couple other, just because I know the work that has gone into this. And
Yeah.
I've also seen the way that these people the darkness tells on itself, doesn't it, Paula? Like the people who are speaking the truth, they're the ones that get shadow banned. They're the ones that get abused. They get attacked, right?
Yeah.
And it sucks because like I get shadow banned like crazy, but as Catherine Edwards does too, our friend Catherine and I offline, it sucks. But we're always like, well, at least we know we're right about some things, or else we wouldn't be shadow banned as we
Yeah, that's right.
and
Because things just seem to, the ones that aren't, they're giving the misinformation, they just seem to really be promoted and really just out there
profiting.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's all ego based, and so so the darkness loves it that they're out there giving false information. And so they're channeling, but most of the time they're not, as we've seen from the Cassiopeians past readings, most of these people who think they're channeling are either channeling from Lizzies, from dark forces, pretending to be good, or they're in their imagination. It's just their
Yeah.
imagination.
And I think like a lot of them have started off with good intentions of doing the right thing, but then it's just so easy for the ego to get involved. And if you're in contact with the wrong kind of being, of course they're going to say all the right things in the beginning to get people following and to get people interested and think, oh, wow, this person's saying the truth because this has happened and that's happened. And then slowly, slowly, they just start to manipulate and to change things. And that's where it can be really hard because the certain people, were good to begin with, but then over time,
We're corrupted.
the information, yeah, has been messed with. And yeah, and that's makes it hard. And that's why you just got to keep doing the research, keep working on yourself, and keep following your gut instinct, as Tamara says.
Yeah. And the basis of spirituality, guys, it's all in the Yoga Sutras. The basis of spirituality is this friction between Prakriti and Purusha, the matter, nature, and the soul. And I think what happens is if people understood that, if they understood that the body, speaking of like using the body is a tool for your soul to awaken, but it's not your soul. It's just a tool. So that's like exercises. That's the tool of the body in order to exhaust the nature, in order to understand that there's something else inside of you that has nothing to do with the identity that you're in now. And a lot of these false spiritual teachings are so wrapped up into the false sense of self, the ego, that for me, it's obvious that this is corrupt. But for people who don't understand the conflict between nature and soul, yeah, as Patanjali states in the Yoga Sutras, like the reason why man suffers, the human condition, if you will, is that who we think we are is not actually who we are. So I think I'm Bryce, but Bryce is mortal. And so it's like trying to hold sand in your hand. One day, spoiler alert, one day I'm going to die. One day we're going to cease to be. And so we have this insufferable suffering because we think we're real, but we know ultimately we're not, because death comes. So that's where the depression, the anxiety, because we're holding on to something that's not permanent. It can't be permanent. Again, trying to hold sand in your hand, it's just going to slip away. And so we have to find the soul through the matter. And so when we see these channelers talking about like, oh, well, you were this in a past life and that in a past life, and you're a star seed, and at night you're fighting lizards on dragons, that's all false teaching. Yes, you're a star seed. We're all star seeds, as the Cassiopeans said. No human being is from this earth. So every single human being on this planet is technically a star seed. Okay. So, you know,
Yeah.
but past lives absolutely do exist, but they're not this life. This is what matters in this life, is your work now, the karma you're facing now. To be so focused on past lives is to disassociate from the life that you're in now. And that's just going to build more karma for you. Right. And also, if you're so focused on at night, you're fighting dragons or lizzies, that's still part of the prakriti. It's still part of the nature. So it's still part of the illusion. And so real spirituality does not inflate the ego. Real spirituality is actually very humbling.
Yeah,
It,
sure is.
it's very humbling because it's like, as Ram Dass used, one of Ram Dass's famous lectures, where everybody's trying to be somebody. We're always trying to be somebody, but the point of spirituality is to try to be nobody.
Yeah.
Be nobody. That's the point of spirituality. Because this existence, this dharma, because our dharma is our life path in the body, but that's just for this life. That's just the ride, right? That's just the roller coaster ride. That's not the person in the roller coaster ride. That's just taking the ride, right? Which is the soul. And so that's a good way for people to understand whether they're being manipulated or not. Does the teaching blow up your ego?
Yeah.
Does the teaching make you feel like you're better than somebody else?
Yeah, or that you're special.
Or that you're special, or you're a chosen one, or we see that in a lot. That's I have a lot of problems with the truther community, because a lot of the truther community is corrupt. It is very much, they're laughing at us, right? The Aluma Shmati. But we see this like immense ego coming out of the truther community, this arrogance. Like, I know better than you because I know things. Who gives a shit what you know? How are you as a person? Are you behaving?
Yeah. How are you treating people? How are you living your life on a daily basis? Yeah.
Are you fair with people? Are you doing your own shadow work? That's the whole promise of the medbed, or the promise of Nasara. It's stopping people from actually doing their work. Like this idea, this, carrot on the end of a string, the goalpost keeps getting moved, right? But we have this like delusion that all of our body problems, which body problems are just karma, that's just our lessons. But if we're neglecting to do the lesson because we think there's a get out of jail free card in this magical tanning bed, med bed, that's going to just zap then we're going to not do the work, because we're waiting where that carrot is dangling at the end, and it just keeps getting moved further and further away. You're being manipulated. Yeah. And that's the ego, right? The ego is like, oh, I'm special, so therefore I don't have to do the work. I can, all of this stuff was done to me. I'm the victim of the Aluma Shmati. I'm the victim of the establishment. Bro, we're all the victim of the establishment. We're all here on planet Earth together. We all have to play the same game. We all have to have banking accounts. We've all been this. What gives you this special get out of jail free card where you think you're arrogant enough to not have to go through the turmoil that everybody else does? So that's what I mean by it's blowing the ego up, the false sense of self. And let me tell you something, like, especially it comes back to the academy as well. Like, even if medbeds were real, I don't want one. Why would I want a medbed? That's giving my power away to something that's not even human. That's not even a sentient being. It's technology. That's it. You mean to tell me that the same God who created the fucking Rocky Mountains made my body delinquent? No. The delinquent parts of my body, the pains in my body, that's my karma. That's my responsibility. And the God that created the Rocky Mountains, that also created me and you, gave us everything we needed to fix it ourselves.
Yeah, and the thing is that if if you do find a magic pill for something, and yeah, it might be all wonderful to get the results that you've been wanting all along, but you've actually just robbed yourself of the whole experience and learning possibility and breakthroughs and the magic of going through all of that discomfort. Um, because a medbed is not gonna, yeah, okay, it might say you've problems with it being overweight, or you've got heart problems or something, whatever the issue is, yeah, it might help resolve that, but are you just going to get that back again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you've not actually done the work. You've not actually cleared why it's there in the first place, why you have that imbalance in your body. Because all disease, all illness is just an imbalance in the body. And it's your job, your responsibility to figure out what that is. Nobody else can do that for you. And yeah, okay, there are things like you can go and have surgery and you can get tumors cut out of you and things like that. But what's to stop it from coming back again if you're not actually doing the work to make sure it doesn't come back again, you know?
That's 100%. It's like we were talking about crash diets earlier. Like you don't go on a crash
Mm.
diet, you lose a bunch of weight. But if you didn't deal with
Yep,
the issue that made you gain weight in the first place, it's just going to come back again. And
exactly.
so we have to we talked about that last time with the the whole Ouija board thing. Like you can get a spirit removed that's attached to
Hmm.
you, but if you don't
Yep,
fix the bait, if you don't fix whatever issue, jealousy, deceit, whatever it is, that
it's attracting it.
demon could latch onto, if you don't take that away, then it's just going to come back. It's just going to come
Exactly.
back.
So you can go pay, people to get it removed, but then it can come back straight back again because you haven't actually dealt with the issue. And this is why I just feel like, yeah, I agree with you, Bryce. I mean, when you first said that, I was like, oh, we wouldn't want a med bed, but like, yeah, I wouldn't, because I don't want to be robbed of that experience, of that journey, of that growth and doing the work, because yeah, it's not fun. It's not always comfortable. It's not
No.
always enjoyable, but once you've gotten through it, it is so rewarding. It's the most
Yeah.
rewarding thing.
I wouldn't trade my experiences. Like I know this might sound arrogant of me, but this is what I've learned in my 19 years, going through
Hmm.
broken sacrums, broken wrist, arthritis, all sorts of issues in my body that I've had to contend with that have been very painful. I'm way
Yeah.
stronger than any machine
Hmm.
because God made me. God made Paula, God made you. So you're way stronger than any machine that's just being programmed by another living being. And one thing I've learned too, we talk about exchange of energy. Everything's an energy exchange, right? Everything's an energy exchange. So everything come with that being said, since everything is an energy exchange, everything comes with a cost. Nothing is free.
Yeah.
So if you go get in a med bed, at what cost?
Yeah.
At what cost? Now there are whistleblowers that have come out of these families that say the thing about med beds is you have to sell your soul to get into them.
Oh, yeah. I'm not willing to. That's not worth it for me.
I have an interview
Some
about
people
that
might not mind.
on Gnostic TV. I'm not going to say too much about that here on the YT, but if you go down below into the description box, guys, to Gnostic TV in the Esoteric Explorer series, there's a episode about that. So, but that makes sense because everything comes at a cost.
Yep.
That's karma. That's cause and effect. That's energy exchange, right? And so, and I will say, Paula, when I think back of my 19 years of experience in this healing world, the days where I was like the most broken in the Mysore room in India or in Philadelphia with David Grieg, when I was in so much pain, emotionally, physically, whatever, the days where I rolled my mat out and I really didn't know how I was going to get through that practice, those were usually the most powerful days. Because in that moment, I had no ego. In my that
Yes.
moment, it was all humility because I was in pain. And in that
And you
moment,
just detach from everything. And
in
I feel like that's so powerful when we detach from because when we're so attached to something,
yeah,
and this is a problem with manifestation as well, is sometimes we can just be so caught up on wanting something and we're so attached to it, we actually deter it from coming into our lives because we're just giving off desperation and things like that. So I love that, because if you go into a practice having high expectations and like, yep, I can do this, I'm the best, at doing these poses or whatever thoughts go through your head, you're attached to a certain outcome, and looking good to other people that are watching you. Whereas if you are just so, it's not always fun to feel so broken and in pain, but you just like, I got nothing to lose. I got nothing
No.
to lose. I'm just going
And
to do the
those
best that I can. And that's sometimes when you do the best workout
have the
ever.
biggest breakthrough. And usually it's a mental breakthrough. Like
Yeah.
many times where I would be in Philadelphia, especially with David, because that was when really at the beginning, towards the beginning of my journey where things were really affecting me mentally. Like where a lot of our students now, it's different. Years later, now I recognize that beast and I can handle it. But then, I would be in Philadelphia and I wouldn't want to go to practice because it's a hard practice. And it's just the thought of everything I would have to do and how uncomfortable the practice was. But I would go because I was in Philadelphia for that reason. So I have to go, right? I'd go, I'd roll my mat out. And those days of being so broken, and then David would work with me and support me. And in those moments of being covered in sweat, shaking, usually most of the pain was emotional pain that was playing out physically. And I knew that at that point. But to have somebody there, yes, I mean, he was my teacher. I paid tuition, but there's some crappy teachers out there. No, he would invest that time to be with me, holding my hand on that mat. I had to do the work. But to have him
Yeah.
there believing in me and telling me to do it again, that security helped me pull that out of myself as well. And so I would
Yeah.
never trade that. I would never trade that those experiences ever. And there's a great saying, I love it. Our broken bits, that's how the light comes through.
Yes.
Where we're broken is how the light comes through. Right? We don't go to people.
That's like the one I shared, my little short that I created about the wounds. That's where the light comes through, by Rumi. Yeah.
Where you're broken.
Yeah.
The more your heart breaks, the more the light shines. Because that's where we have, as human beings, Paula, we come from so many different backgrounds and we have different karmas, we have different lifestyles, but we all experience emotional pain. You could be the richest person in the world, but if you see us the poorest person in the world in emotional pain, you understand that. That's that human connection. And so that's, as a teacher, that's my job now. I'm now in the David Garrigues role where I have to be that for my students. And when I can see that there's something going on, I still have to be there, hold their hand and say, do it again. Do it again. Just keep going. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And so to not have those experiences, and that's the time when you really feel God. You don't feel God when life is perfect and great and everything's wonderful.
No.
God when there's suffering. Because you're in that moment of truth. David used to say, in the Ashtanga practice, we have 3 teachers: the practice, the teacher, and the injury. And David would always say, like, don't ever take the injury for granted. Because when there's injury, there's truth. You can't fake it when you're injured. You can't push further with your ego when you're injured. There's truth there.
Wow.
We work with that truth. That's why we still practice injured. Of course, we don't do the practice the same way as we would when we're not injured. But there's a level of truth that brings us into that humility, which then brings us into the now, which puts us in a place to learn, to be open to learning, because we realize we don't know everything, right? When that injury happens, oh shit, the practice didn't do this to me. I did this to myself in the practice. So what did I do wrong? Maybe I'm not the greatest. Maybe there's something I need to learn, right? There's this great video with David where he talks about Patabi Joyce, when he asked Patabi Joyce, because the Ashtanga practice is painful. It's physically painful. It's supposed to be. It's uncomfortable. And David asked Patabi Joyce, is this pain necessary? Like a long time ago when he was a student himself, sitting in India, asked Patabi Joyce, Guruji, is this pain necessary in this practice? And Guruji kind of looked at him and goes, yes, because pain is real. Pain is real. It's real.
Yep.
You can't.
And whether that's emotional or physical or spiritual, all of it, it's real.
It's real. And that's truth. And that's why the greatest teachings from the East, yoga is so compromised now. It's all about being comfortable. And that's what I'm telling you guys. That's the biggest sign of corruption. Now, we're not going to break your legs and your arms, but these postures are meant to be uncomfortable. They're meant to bring up discomfort and some level of pain. because that's what's real. And it's going to be different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
For me, putting my leg behind my head, forward folding hip openers was never an issue. I could do that all day. Backbending was my issue. That's where there was pain. For other people, there's a lot of pain with leg behind the head. So that's different karmas. That's why in traditional yoga, we don't leapfrog. We have to start from primary series. And we have to hit every single posture. Every person has to hit every single posture. We can't skip over things because there's an alchemy, there's a value. And it's not about, it's not about, the body is going to, obviously, if you see somebody practicing third series in Ashtanga, they've been practicing for probably 25 years. They're going to look fit. They're going to look good in a bathing suit. They're going to have a six-pack. But you look at that practitioner, they don't care about that. They're in that shala at 4 o'clock in the morning, focused. Because
they're committed to the practice.
They're trying to get to that place of discomfort so they can learn more. They can chisel away at the false sense of self in the illusionary world. Right? And so, and honestly, when you're in the Ashtanga world, I used to laugh. I used to think it was so funny because you walk into Mysore rooms and it's just like a room full of muscle. Like everyone looks good, right? Everybody in that room is going to look good naked, right? But we're up so early in the morning to practice that none of those people are taking advantage of that and going to the bar, right? Like it's kind of like
they're half asleep, got the t-shirt on back to front.
They're in bed by 7, so it's like this beautiful body is being a little bit wasted because no, it's not wasted. It's kind of funny because that's just not the intention, right? It's not the intention of the and so I encourage you guys. So whether that's like, if you're going on a walk or something and you get winded and you think, oh, that's enough, try just going a little bit longer. What happens if you stay? Like what happens if you stay in that run for like, if you're working on running and you've built up to running 10 minutes nonstop, why not try going 2 more minutes? See what happens. Just see what happens. What happens if you stay? What happens if you're in that yoga class or, bar class or whatever, and something is super uncomfortable and your mind's negotiating with you, telling you to stop? What happens if you just go, actually, I think I'm just going to stay. I'm just going to stay. Just give me 30 more seconds. Let me just stay for 30 more seconds. What's going to happen? That's because where that breakthrough is usually at the opposite side of what. That's why it's called a breakthrough, right? It's not a break over. It's a breakthrough, right?
Yeah.
So
you get through that uncomfortable spot.
And we did see that. What was it in the part 7 where Laura talked about going to talk about her experiences in Orlando at a UFO conference, and she just gave the hardcore truth, and everybody felt sorry for her because it wasn't gross. And it was kind of funny because like that's typical. Like, watch out for the grandiose stuff because that's spiritual manipulation, right? Real spirituality is so like Paula, I don't know about you, but I get really frustrated with like the yoga costume. Like there are people that will dress like yogis, like they'll wear like all the mala beads and they'll like wear like and that makes me laugh because in the Ashtanga world, everybody looks like Ned Flanders. Like in the Ashtanga world, everybody wears like just jeans and t-shirt.
Yeah.
They don't need to wear a costume because they're actually doing the work.
I just wear a singlet and shorts. I just wear a singlet top and shorts.
I mean, filming.
Well, actually, no, that's a lie. Majority of the time, I'm in my pajamas because I get straight out of bed and then I just roll out my mat, put you on my phone, and I have to do it in my bed because little Scarlett's usually asleep, and if she wakes up and I'm not in the bedroom, she'll panic. So I can't do it anywhere but the bedroom. So I'm usually just doing it in my pajamas.
And that's life. That's real, right? Again, that goes back to the real. There's no grand room you walk into, shrine where you're doing it with your child sleeping in the bed. That I do it with my dog. I tell you guys, I always laugh. I have clothes that I practice in and clothes that I teach in. They're different.
Yeah, right.
Because my clothes that I practice in are so beaten up and smelly and stained. Because they've been through war with me, and so I now have clothes I film in too. So it's very different.
Because you want to look nice.
Yes, I don't want to. Yeah, and I also have to make sure the color so you guys can actually see me. I don't blend into my sofa. But that's real. Like that's real, right? That is real. Like I say, Ashtanga sorority, as a teacher too, most of the time people don't even have their pants. I go to adjust somebody and their pants are on inside out or backwards. Just so damn early in the morning.
I just love how you say about your teacher would wear his like Was it the Calvin Klein
Yes,
underwear?
Patabi Joyce, Todd's teacher. He was given, somebody brought him Calvin Klein boxer briefs as a gift because sometimes you bring, like from the Western world, because they didn't, and he thought they were yoga shorts. And so he walked down the next day in his underwear, and nobody had the heart to tell him that those were actually underwear. So there's all these very
Oh,
famous pictures of Patabi Joyce and his Calvin Klein underwear that he thought were yoga pants. So it
that's
just is
so
what it
cute.
is, right? It is what it
Yep.
is. That's just the reality of, that's why in a MISO room, you never hear people, the teachers in MISO rooms never speak in like a teacher voice. They never
Mhm.
like, it's just like I'm talking to you now because this is what's real and this is what we're working
Yeah.
with. We're not trying to, put on a show. We're not trying to entertain you. This is work. And so I know we went off on that for a while, but I think that was really important to, for people to
To
hear
cover
that.
that.
Like, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Westerners in particular have a really hard time with that concept because we're so
Yeah,
lucky. We're so blessed in the Western world because we do have a lot of comfort in the Western world.
we do.
We
We
do.
really do.
I mean, there are
Hmm.
places in India where they still have to go to the well and get their water every morning and walk back with jugs of water on their head. We don't have to do
Yep.
that. Like, we don't have to do that. And so we have a water filter system in our kitchen, right? So,
Mhm.
we have cars to drive to get us places with air conditioning,
I
and
know.
so when Westerners start to really dive into this path, it can shock the system when we're like, no, it's okay to be uncomfortable. But that's where the friction is, right? We want that friction. That's where the heat is, that karmic burn. So anyway, I guess, well, anything else you want to say? That was a long tangent, but I think it was
Yeah,
necessary. It needed to be
that was
said.
a really long tangent, but good.
This is
Valuable one.
this is a good one. So that's why we might not get through this whole article today, guys. We might have to do
Yeah,
a part two
we
on
might have to do it
part
two
three.
parts, but that's okay.
um, New evidence, new knowledge can change the entire foundation of what we think we know. Oh, we know that for sure, don't we, Paula? Just stepping
Mhm.
outside of spirituality, like Tartaria.
Yeah.
Our whole view on history has changed. Even knowing that the truth of the world is corrupt, and 99% of the conspiracies that the truth of the world puts out are bullshit. That changes the foundation too. That a lot of our viewers
Yeah.
have kind of been moved, like us, have moved out of the normie world and the truth of the world. We're on our own little path because we
Yeah,
realize
we started our own little group.
both are corrupt. Like, the more we learn, the less we know. So, and this of course is part of the very problem of the Grail. Everyone builds a hypothesis based on certain knowledge that may be available to them alone. Then they become invested in this hypothesis, emotionally attacked. That is, and when new information is discovered or brought to their attention, they not only do not want to hear it or see it, they simply cannot. Yeah, that's a lot of the truthers. They've been so emotionally attached that when you try to tell them, hey, Junior might actually be gone, they freak out because they become so identified. That's soul smashing, though, right, Paula? We've talked. That's the selling of the
Yeah.
soul, is to believe a lie and not be
Hmm.
open to your own
The other
opinions
possibilities.
not being
Yeah.
fact, right?
Hmm.
And so you get that hard hit of, I can't change because I've given so much to this lie that now that I've taken so much ridicule that if I were to admit that I'm wrong about some things, who am I? That's like a death, right? So, and you guys, I'll tag down below the episodes we did on soul smashing and selling your soul because it's really important. That's a very important topic I think the Cassiopeans have brought to our attention. I do not want to fall prey to this kind of amnesia, so I have gone about this in a more or less scientific manner. I began by collecting data. I have no idea which data would prove to be important, and I knew from the beginning that it was better to assume nothing and just collect and sort and see what patterns emerge themselves from the sorting process. It was rather like the preparations made to put a large, complicated jigsaw puzzle together. One begins by sorting the pieces of color into piles. At the same time, if one comes across those which are clearly the border pieces, one then puts them in altogether in an altogether different pile. Once in a while sorting, serendipity brings two pieces together, and those are put into sub piles. And I like that. That's something that my boyfriend always says, like when a new conspiracy is unleashed, he'll always say, well, let's just see how this plays out.
Yeah.
So we're taking in the data, but we're not attaching to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that approach too.
Let's just see how it plays out. Like when the whole 17th letter of the alphabet thing, we would read the post and I would find myself getting excited or something. He'd be like, no, 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 let's just see. We don't
That's
know
great.
for sure that this is a good thing, but this is a good guy. We don't, let's just see how it plays out. And so I've tried to take that approach too. Let's just see how it plays out. I'm not going to attach to any belief one way or another. I'm going to observe all opinions, all beliefs, and let's just see how it plays out. After this process is completed, it is done again in a more refined and exact way. However, the Grail problem is not so easy. It's like having the puzzle, only someone has hidden half or more of the pieces. Not only are we going to have difficulty getting a full outline, if we do assemble the pieces we have accurately, we may not be able to determine what the picture truly portrays. And to this fact, that someone may come into the room and drop pieces into your pile that don't even belong to the puzzle. Absolutely.
Mm.
And I think that's the problem again with the conspiratorial world we see now, is that it's that arrogance, right? Like, we have all this information, but what I believe we have is only like the top of the avalanche. Like, I don't even think even in the truther world,
Yeah.
we've even begun to understand the depth of our programming and the depth of deception. And I think being open to that, to your own stupidity, we'll say, to your own weaknesses, it brings you back to that humility of like, we don't know everything. So let's just be kind to each other and keep an open mind with everything. Because then we get, as she said, someone comes in and drops puzzle pieces that don't even, that's junk conspiracy.
Yeah.
That's
all the fake stuff. Yeah.
They get you going around in circles in a junk conspiracy cul-de-sac, you know, that don't
going down different rabbit holes that don't even end up going anywhere.
Don't even matter.
But they keep you distracted and they keep you lost.
Yeah, and I will say one thing too, like I'll say the JE list. We know we can't say his name, guys. The guy that had the island, JE, that list that everybody wants. I know the Cassiopeans have said there's a reason why it hasn't been released yet. Basically, it's being used right now for leverage in order to get certain bad guys, because the bad guys are not going to capitulate on their own. They have to be, you have to fight fire with fire. But beyond that, I kind of figured there was a reason why. And Todd said this in your interview too, like sometimes imagine the chaos. Imagine
100%.
Is it going to make the situation worse? Like we already know. We already know who's on the list, you guys. Like it's on the Diddy list too. Like, but then I was watching some stuff yesterday. Mel K had done deeper research. I'm just paraphrasing that actually this isn't the big story. The list is not the big story. There's more that's going to come out. And so you see how we're so focused on the list?
Yeah.
But we don't even see what we can't see. You know, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be justice. Absolutely, there should be justice. And if at some point, even a year from now, arrests aren't made, then yeah, I would start maybe worrying a little bit. But at this moment, more is coming out. And
and we just don't know what is being played behind the scenes and what actions are being taken. You know, we don't know the full story. And, you know, sometimes we just have to be patient and just wait to see how it all unfolds.
Plays out, right? Like, and the thing is, guys, like I've said it before, we've said it 1,000 times, the bad guys are never going to capitulate. We are in a war right now. The white hats are not in control. We are in a war right now. And for me, sometimes I'm glad I don't know as much as like maybe people in the military do or people higher up do, because I think I might have a panic attack. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. Sometimes, you know, we talk about the kids, you know, like not everyone needs to know about that. Like, why are you trying to trauma dump on somebody else to prove you're right? That's a service to self-action. Like if someone is not ready to see that evidence, but you want to prove you're right, and so you're going to force them to see evidence that might trauma dump on them, that's you being selfish.
That's really unfair.
That's really unfair. And I have a feeling, Paula, with the Diddy case here in the United States, with all the names being dropped on the Diddy case, I think the JE list is going to take care of itself just with that case alone.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there's more to Jeffrey than we know.
Oh, yeah.
And so we need to like let things play out the way they need to play out for the safety of humanity, of how it's going to best serve humanity. Right?
Because who knows what other stuff is going to come out, and it's just I think things need to really be done in a certain way, because it would I often think about what Todd said in the interview, and it just chaos. Like I don't want to deal with all that. Like it would be horrible. Just imagine everybody going around just going nuts from finding out this information
Think
before they're
about what
ready.
happened in 2020, the summer of
Yeah.
love. Now
Oh my
multiply that all
gosh.
over the world. You guys, like,
Exactly. You know,
and
and even though like us that have known about have been awake for some time, and then especially people like Todd that have been awake for a really long time, like yes, it can be frustrating having to wait, knowing this stuff and just be like, hurry up and get it out there. But we've been able to pick and choose and deep dive into what we want to deep dive in. Just imagine having all of that forced upon you. If
right,
all of the things that I've learned over the last few years were forced upon me, you know, I
it's gonna be
picked and chose
abusive.
and deep dived into what I wanted to, but I don't think I would have coped very well if somebody just sat me down and forced all of this on me. I'd probably have a mental breakdown.
It's like Clockwork Orange. Remember when they hold him down, they force his eyes open, they force him to
Yeah,
see trauma? That's what it
yeah,
would be like, and that's abusive.
yeah. And
What, so
that
you
is
can be right?
that's not helping anyone. How is that helping anyone? Then we're going to have all these people that are mentally broken down and they're going to need so much trauma and therapy. How is that going to help?
It's going to cause psychosis. It's going to cause all sorts. I mean, that, do you want to be responsible for abusing someone that way? You have to allow, just so you can be right. Like, are you that
Yeah.
arrogant that you would want to inflict that much trauma on somebody just to be right? Is your ego
Yeah.
that inflated? And that's a problem. One of the biggest problems I have with the truther community. Truthers, you are not in control of other people's destiny. You still,
Mm.
just because you know stuff about the elite does not make you better than anybody else.
Oh.
You still have to live this world with everything we've learned about what goes on in the world should have made you a better person. It should
Mm-hmm.
have made you self-reflect on what it means to be a kind person, on what it means to be a good person. That's what should have happened. It should have humbled you in the fact that you don't know everything. But instead, we see these people going out there arrogantly pretending like they're better than everybody else because they know things that other people don't know, trying to inflict trauma on other people. You're no better, truthers. Most of you are no better than the Illuminati itself
Yeah.
because you're causing trauma to people for your own selfish desires.
To be
How is
right.
that any different than what the people you think are terrible are doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's I tell you, Paula, this is you know, I had that issue with the Enough is Enough Telegram group where it got bad. And the guy who runs the Enough is Enough Telegram group had started all these conspiracy theories about me. One was that I was actually born a male, which we are looking at filing a defamation lawsuit after I get through the criminal trials with my stalker, because that's not true. I'm very much a biological female, and to say that about somebody without is cruel. That's you being a mean
Yeah.
person and being an evil person. And I
That's
know he's triggered.
unnecessary.
He's triggered because what I teach is not ego based. It's about actually doing your work.
Mm-hmm.
And then because Ron DeSantis, Governor DeSantis of Florida, was one of my high school teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody liked it. Now that's kind of cool. Like, you know, people have mixed feelings about Mr. DeSantis. I always call him Mr. DeSantis because that's how I remember him. And whatever your political feelings, fine, great. You can like him or not. But he was a great teacher. I loved Mr. DeSantis. Everybody loved Mr. DeSantis. And it's wild that he's a governor now. But we aren't that far apart in age. Like, it was towards the end of my high school, and he had just like finished college. So we were very close in age. Like, my boyfriend and I are further apart in age than Mr. DeSantis and I are. But nonetheless, I had kind of mentioned that was cool. Well, this Gordon from Enough is Enough created a story that I had an inappropriate relationship with Governor DeSantis when I was underage, which never happened. That's not that. Listen, the school I went to was extremely abusive. Mr. DeSantis was not the problem. He was one of the good ones. And somebody sent me a recording where Gordon from Enough is Enough was actually trying to get a picture, an inappropriate picture of an underage me with Mr. DeSantis. Well, no picture exists of that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't exist because it never happened. So what you're doing is you're creating a picture of an underage child. Are you photoshopping it? And they're all talking about this on this Telegram. And I'm listening to it. And I put a video up on Rumble about it. So basically, they were talking about creating child PORN. That's what they were talking about. We're creating child. So these are truthers.
Mm-hmm.
And the picture.
And how is this helping the humanity by making up stuff about you?
I know. And the fact that they're creating child PORN. And it's not me. It's because there is no picture that exists. So what child are you using? And they're talking about the creation of this, and then they're talking about distributing it. So that's the transporting, we'll say, I can't say the other word for carpooling, for transporting of child. How different is Gordon Harkless from Jeffrey?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing that they did on that island. You're creating child inappropriate, and now you're all these truthers are in this little conversation. I still have the recording, and guess what? The police have it too. I sent it to the police because you were talking about creating child, PORN, and then after that, distributing it. That's a felony. That's a felony.
I'm so sorry you had to go through that, Bryce. It's just,
that's
so
shaking
wrong
right now. But it's like, that is what I'm talking about, is like this truth of world is just as guilty of the same crimes.
That's extreme behavior. Like, how ridiculous. Why? If you care about humanity at all, why would you want to do something like that? That's actually sick.
It's sick. It's sick, and it's cruel, and it's because these people have not healed themselves. So they're taking, my boyfriend said it best. He was like, because he went and found these people and found their Facebooks. He's like, all of these people are overweight, middle-aged. Most of the women are divorced. So they obviously have a lot of insecurities about themselves. They were probably picked on in high school. And instead of having...
Well, let's just pick on Bryce.
Yeah, so now they're taking that pain and they're abusing me with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not being awake.
No.
That's service to self. So Gordon Harkless,
that's just joining. May as well be joining the cabal if you're going to be behaving like that. That's not helping anyone.
Exactly,
and ruining your life
and trying to ruin my good luck. I mean, I've dealt with worse, but the police do have all that. That's serious. Like, that's when I heard that, like, it wasn't even about me anymore because there is no picture of me that exists. So what child are you using for these pictures?
Exactly. That's a huge concern.
And that's why I sent it straight to the police in Florida, because it's not even about me anymore. Mm-hmm. And guys, it is illegal. Even if a person is an adult and you're showing pictures of them as a child, that's still considered, even if the person at this point is an adult, that's still considered.
Yeah.
I can't say, on YouTube, but so right, like, what are you doing? So the police have that. They're able to track people on Telegram. Mm-hmm. So so this is what I'm talking about. This is why the truth of the world is, to me, in my opinion, is just as corrupt, if not corrupt, than the normies.
Even stuff like that's going on.
And that's going on all across the board. I'm not the only person that this happened to. Yeah. This has happened to a lot. And I laugh, Paula, because to say somebody who is a biological female is a male is really cruel. That's really cruel. That's mean. That's evil. That's cruel. But Paula, you've seen me work out. You've seen me in videos. Do I have a man's body?
No. You definitely do not have a man's body. But even if you did decide to change, how is that any of their business?
I know, right? That's the thing.
I know you're 100% female, but I'm just saying that, like, it's none of their business. How is that going to affect their daily life? It's like when we hear about different celebrities and, whether they've had those changes or not. At the end of the day, is that affecting your life? Is that...
It's just a way for people to feel better about themselves.
Yeah, because they're distracting and focusing on all of that gossip, because that's all it is. It's just gossip. We don't know whether it's true or not. It's just gossip. And then you're not focusing on you and dealing with what you need to work on. Because you know what? I barely watch anything to do with celebrities. In fact, I often have to have like a catch up on things. I often have to have a catch up on like what's going on in the world, because I tend to just live in a little bubble of like this little healing world, because I'm trying to just worry about myself and my kids and my life and the stuff that I've got to do. Yeah. I'm not worried about what's going on out there. That's not going to affect me.
To try to indoctrinate your kids into that is one thing, but for people who adults who have done it, it's none of our business. I'm sorry, but that just... Yeah, that's a different thing. These are two different things, right? When an adult decides to do that and they're not hurting you, that's one thing. But when the school is trying to, that's a different thing. The truthers have confused this. They have confused this completely. They've confused this. And they now I said that, I've actually, Catherine and I have talked about this, Edwards offline, like the truthers that are constantly pointing the finger at celebrities, claiming that they have changed, that your insecurities are showing.
Yeah.
Your insecurities are showing. You've become the mean girl. You've become the mean boy, because you don't know that for a fact. And to say that about somebody, now that I've been in that position, is really cruel. It's really cruel.
Definitely.
Very cruel. I've done nothing to any of you guys. I actually tried to help Gordon grow his channel. I would do free shows on his channel all the time to help him grow. And to have that happen to me for clickbait,
Just a slap in the face, isn't it?
it's cruel. It's absolutely cruel, but we are taking legal action. I'm still in the criminal processes with my stalker who was attached to Gordon. And once we get through the criminal proceedings, then we can go into civil. And they're not going to get away with it. And the police do have, and I'm in contact regularly with the police. Like, I don't talk about that much anymore, but Gordon, if you're watching, the police do have that. They have that recording. And for everybody that was in that meeting, the police have that. You are guilty of the transportation and the creation of child PORN. So you are no different. According to law, you're no different than Jeffrey. So get your head out of your ass, truthers. You're not better than anybody else. You're not the moral police.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. The Cassiopeans at one point said that only 3% of the human population is actually going to go fourth density positive.
Yeah, and when you hear about stuff like that, it kind of makes sense.
Absolutely, it makes sense. Absolutely. I think more normies are going to go positive than truthers, to be honest with you, Paula, because there's some normies that are really badly behaved, but I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the day-to-day, like your neighbor, your parent, like the ones that aren't, that just think the news is real. They don't, but they're not bad people. They're still
good people. Yeah.
They're good people. They would never create child PORN or talk about. They would never do that. They would never accuse somebody of being something, the different gender. That they would see that as cruel. Those people are going to go fourth density positive. And I mean, maybe some of the truthers will go fourth density negative with their behavior. I don't know. This pecking order of relevance and importance, I don't know. But I know we've kind of went on a tangent. Maybe is spirit moving through us today? Like, so we only got
I know.
paragraphs in, but this is it's a huge topic. And this was written in 2011. So think about how long this junk conspiracy has been going on.
Yeah, time.
Long time. All right, because I know we have a meeting in a few, and we'll get maybe a few more paragraphs in, and then we'll mark it and pick up part 2 of part 3. All right. Yes, it's that bad, if not worse. Agreed. Yes, it's that bad, if not. Oh, wait. Past Laura, this was 2011. It's going to get a lot worse in the next years. But not to get discouraged, let me continue with some preliminary remarks, keeping in mind always the process described above. As the reader may guess after thinking about the problem of putting the puzzle pieces together, the process of gathering and sorting the pieces, as well as the details of the discoveries along the way, are lengthy and tedious. But the conclusions arrived at were, to the mind of the present writer, nothing short of shattering. In fact, a person can fully outline all the steps taken to solve so complex a problem as the Grail. They probably don't have a clue. Of course, in the broadest of terms, the Grail quest is always personal to each and every one who is inspiring to undertake it. But in my case, I was not exactly on the track of the Holy Grail per se. I was simply a seeker of truth, the purest and most objective I could find. After years of collecting puzzle pieces and sorting them, after the Cassiopeans' communications, I began to realize that everything became dense as it coalesced around the Grail problem. It's not just a symbol in a story about knightly quest and their performance of feats of daring do-alongs the way. At some point, I realized that this is the secret of secrets, the grand destiny, the gnosis of the meaning of uniting science, philosophy, and religion, as well as mind, matter, and time. The one thing she's left out here. What's the one thing, Paula, that she's left out here with mind, matter, and time?
Well, spirituality as well. She's missed out.
Yeah. And that's one thing I've pushed back about with her is I don't think she quite still understands that the mind and the matter and the time is not the soul. This is
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
what's real. This is just the roller coaster
It's
ride.
part of that illusion, the game that we're in.
We see that here, science,
Hmm.
philosophy, and religion. There is soul here. Philosophy is a lot of soul.
Hmm.
Religion, not so much, but we'll say
Yeah.
religion is the matter, is the nature. Philosophy is about the soul, and the science is the combine. That's the human, the mind, body, spirit complex, right? But her interpretation is not this because she's left out the soul, because the mind is not the soul. The matter
Yeah.
is not the soul. Time is not the soul. The time, the soul is timeless, right? The soul doesn't have time because it's always just been. They get
Hmm.
funny about new souls too. They get mad at them when they ask about old souls and new souls, and they're like, all the souls were created at the same time.
Yeah.
But isn't
Yeah.
that such an arrogance, though, Paula? Where I'm an old soul, you're a new,
Yeah.
yeah. You know,
I
there's
know. And
mirrors.
it's so it's such a common thing for people to say now these days.
No, they're like,
Yeah.
you, bro, guys, you've been all here. I think what people are picking up on is wanderers, people who are
Right. Yeah.
wanderers, which have come down
Hmm.
from a different dimension, which still in itself can get you caught in all sorts of ego traps. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
souls are the same age. It took me a long time to come to this realization because my nature is fundamentally skeptical. I'm constantly incapable of taking anybody's word for anything. I have to see for myself. If I read a quoted source in a book, I have to read the source from which the quote is taken. If that source quotes someone else, I am driven to find the original. And if I ever finally get to the originator of an idea, I am driven to study the life and methods of that person and to discover, if possible, the observation they made which led them to a particular conclusion. This is time consuming and tedious, no question about it. But it is the only way to satisfy me, and it is certainly born valuable fruit in the long run. Many ideas and teachings that other seekers accept at face value, I have long ago discarded as useless after investing in them deeply and finding they are built on a foundation of lies and deception.
Mhm.
Skepticism, the ability to not be fooled, is important. We can also call that discernment, having discernment. But
Yeah.
skepticism can be cheap. It is easy to disbelieve everything, and some scholars seem to take this approach. A better approach is to embrace ideas, to consider nothing absurd, and spend the necessary time to examine it closely and minutely. If you throw away puzzle pieces indiscriminately, you may never complete the puzzle. That's why I always
Mm.
think like as Todd says, like let it play out. Like something that you're skeptical
Yeah.
about, like don't let it go. Maybe just put it like in a filing cabinet somewhere in your mind, but don't hold on to it.
Hmm.
Right?
But
Um,
then always, it's not always good to completely dismiss things either, because
yeah.
sometimes there does seem to have more things come up about it. So, yeah, I think it's a really good approach.
Like even with the junior thing, we'll just say junior JFK Jr. with that whole conspiracy. We know both the 17th letter of the alphabet and the Cassiopeans have said he's not alive.
Hmm.
So we can take the conspiracy that he is alive and throw it away, or we can take it, pull it back out, and examine it and be like, well, why would this conspiracy exist then? So
Mm,
sometimes
yeah.
even
What?
false information, if we actually examine the false information, can give us a clue. My opinion at this moment that conspiracy exists is to get us to rest in our laurels. I believe the bad guys put that out to make us believe a savior is coming,
Yeah,
right? And
definitely.
so I see how cunning they are. So that gives me information for my own self-preservation and spiritual development to be like, okay, you're tricking people right now.
Yeah.
And they're
And don't
choosing to
rest.
believe it, right? They're making the choice to believe it versus
Mhm.
actually researching it.
Yes,
So
that's
it's
true.
working. So the bait is working. Yeah.
Hmm.
And when you find the flaw, even a small one, if it is solidly established as a flaw, you must be prepared to ruthlessly kill the idea and move to another. Scientific training doesn't keep your senses from fooling you, but a good scientist doesn't accept the impressions his senses deliver. He must use them as a starting point, and then he checks and double checks. He looks for additional evidence and for the consistency among his measurements. A scientist differs from other people in that he knows how easily he is fooled, and he goes through procedures to compensate. That's also called, guys, in today's world, confirmation biased. We all have confirmation bias, all of us. To
Hmm.
be aware of that. And Paula, got people get a little upset because I've shown some Cassiopean transcripts that actually contradict my own research. And it doesn't bother me because I'm aware, I know there's confirmation bias, and I need and that's a good scientist, as Catherine Edwards, our friend, who is a scientist by trade. She says a scientist's job is to create a theory and then spend his career or her career disproving her own theory.
Yep, absolutely. And that's how you learn things. And you've got to have an unbiased, you've got to look at all sides, all bits of information, bring them all in and evaluate.
I see it even with like this whole gematria thing. People are under this impression that the bad guys, the establishment, uses gematria. And yeah, they do sometimes, but not the gematria, not A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. It's not that simple, the gematria that they use. That's the fake gematria that they're putting out there. So they're telling you a half-truth that they use gematria, but they're giving you a fake gematria.
Oh,
so I see it in my comments a lot where people are like, well, the gematria is blah, 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 so that means this is correct. No, you just fell hook, line, and sinker for a trick from the cabal.
Oh.
Make you think you have some secret information, make you think you speak their language.
And that you know the code.
Yeah. You really think that if that was the code, they would let all these videos out on gematria on YouTube?
No, they're not going to let people know what their plan is.
Let's use some skepticism here. Let's use some discernment here. Let's use some common sense. No, they use gematria, but it's way more complicated. Gematria that they use, because it has to be, because they're a secret society. So only the people raised in this group
would know
how to break the code. So double everything.
Logical sense.
You have to check everything. I mean, some even said that they even do it like, well, they'll cough or clear their throat before saying something and clear their throat again. So what they've said in that bracket of coughing, like on a TV show or a news report, is the code. But then we don't even know like how they break that down, because it's not A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. It's not that at all. It's something else entirely. So we just have to understand that listen, I'm not afraid to say it. The cabal is many things, but stupid ain't one of them. And they're far smarter than me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
They've been doing this. They've been trained in this since the day they were born.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're
miles ahead.
They're miles ahead. So we cannot be arrogant when it comes to this battle. In fact, the one thing I think that's going to pull us in the right direction, Paula, isn't actually knowing the gematria or knowing these truths. It's just literally not giving them any more of our energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in that, we're seeing that as the case. Mainstream media is going down. Legacy media is going down. They're having to stop giving them attention. So you don't need to learn. Just don't give them attention.
Yeah. Just don't feed them.
Don't feed. Yeah. Be kind to each other. But if you're sitting there walking around all arrogant, like you're God's gift to this world because you know some conspiracies, then the cabal won.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're their puppet at this point now. You're doing exactly what they want you to do. In the normie world during the 2020, each side has catchphrases, right? Like they had trust the science. What's the catchphrase in the truther world? Trust the plan. So just like they had trust the science, we have trust the plan. These are the same things. These are programming. This is MK Ultra. Well, what's the plan?
Well, but both of them are giving your power away to whatever the plan or the science is.
Yeah, just like we would fight back and say, well, what's the science? Show us the science between this. Show us the science. But yet we're not saying, well, what's this? We're not actually having that discernment on ourselves. Like, well, what's the plan? Tell me what the plan is. Right? As a full-fledged adult, if I'm going to get in the car with somebody and go on a road trip, I'm going to know the route too, even if I'm driving or not. I'm going to know where we're going to.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to get it and be like, take me where you want to take me. No, I know exactly where we're going. Right? Like, I'm sorry. I'm not going to trust a plan if I don't know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. We don't even know what it is.
So
it's hard to trust the plan when we're just left to just wait around. And that's exactly what they wanted us to do, was just to wait around and
the
see
science
what
too. Like, I'm not going to trust the science unless you show me the science, right? Like, that is Sorry, my dog was like itching himself. That is, that's giving your power away. Yeah, because you're putting trust in something that you have no control over.
Yeah.
Right. So, and if someone says, oh, well, it's just, you got to leave it to those. No, that's a pecking order. And that's negatively polarized. So maybe we'll read a couple more. Paula and I have a meeting, you guys. I know this will be released later, but we have a meeting at 8 and it's already 7:30. So we'll go a little bit deeper. I've actually enjoyed this conversation, Paula. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I feel like you said, it's very important things, and I think they've all come up for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of been guided to just re-emphasize this stuff.
Just people, take your power back. Please, for the love of God, for the love of humanity, take your power back.
Yeah.
So with each little pile of puzzle pieces, one takes up a likely starting piece and attempts to fit the others into it one by one. But as I noted, it may be so that the starting piece has been tossed into the pile to lead one astray and will never fit anything. Junk conspiracy. And it may take a long time to realize this. Many people never realize it. They trim the piece, they trim over pieces, they force and maneuver to make them fit. Again, we see that a lot in the truther community. And then, of course, having done this, other pieces are found that do actually fit, and they crown with delight that they solved the puzzle, never realizing that the keystone will have caused all the adjacent pieces to come together around a false center. Thus, the primary object has been missed, and the real centerpiece will be tossed aside as irrelevant. Like I think about that too, like forcing pieces to fit. Like from the last administration we had in the United States, we saw unbelievable inflation, prices rising, but yet people are still saying it's a movie and I'm like, no, people are going homeless, but you're trying to force
Yeah.
that's showing you that your foundational belief is wrong. Right? It's not a movie. Like that was not the good guys in Mask. Like people went homeless.
Yep.
Like that's not, so you're trying to force a puzzle piece to fit, but in reality, you have to go back and relook at the foundation of your belief and say, obviously, I was wrong about that belief. This is really bad, what's happening. So I have to get the keystone, a good keystone. I have to reset my foundation. As one begins to study the subject with the eye for subtle clues, one begins to understand that the very words chosen in the numerous tales are designed to either lead to or away from the central issue. In other words, not only are the incidents clues themselves, but the very names are as well. They are installed as helpers or hindrances, and sometimes this can even be a function of the individual reading the clue. One person may be led to a proper understanding by the very same clue that leads another to a wild goose chase. The clues are in the languages, the words, but hidden like little gems coiled up in DNA, waiting for the right chemical or change to electricity and to enable them to uncoil and make themselves known. Sometimes when you read like easy words, just all of a sudden
come out wrong.
And it really only happens when you're reading out loud, right?
Yeah.
And there seems to be a deep connection between language and DNA. Abe Shira writes, Babel, the language of the 21st century, master life and language are three instances where infinite wealth has been achieved with very little. The variety of matter is the product of the combination of about 26 atoms. The innumerable life form of our plant stems from the permutations of only 12 amino acids. Third and last, the millions of words that make up human language are nothing but the combination of about 20 consonants modified by 5 vowels. In the past 50 years, man has made considerable progress in discovering and deciphering the physical and genetic forces that originate inert and organic matter. No comparable advances have been made in the field of language. Why did English-speaking people see the letter L and V to express their love and live? Or what compelled them to designate the opposite feeling by inverting the same two root letters to form vile and evil? That's interesting. Finally, why were totally different languages used to express these feelings in the 6,000 other languages that the earth has known? Our thoughts and our words, and thus made up a chain of letters, the logic of which escapes us totally. Man, the author of speech, is himself made of chains of molecules and proteins, the law of which are well known to us. We may well suppose a strict continuity between these biological rules and those that organize his highest faculty. Language, emphasis made, in other words, we may assume that the laws that rule his flesh also rule his speech. Such a biology of word formation, valid for all of man's languages, is situated at the crossroads of not only all of the earth's tongues, but also all forms of expression such as art, science, and children's stories, myths. One of its fundamental rules is that the words strictly adhere to the object, situations, or beings they designate. Far from being merely convenient tools of communication, words are thick, multidimensional, densely interrelated structures which contain limitless information. During at least 1/3 of our life, we revert to using words in such a universal language. In our dreams, we may be called on by a stone or a dialogue with a flower, a bird, or a water spring. Dreams are pieces of a whole language in which words are still connected to the objects they designate. Night is thus the time when man recovers his full faculty of speech. And I have a lot to say about that, but I think that's a good place to pause the reading, Paula, so we can pick it up in Dreams and Myths in the next part. So stay tuned, guys, the next
Sure.
part. But oh my gosh, like that was like godsend, because we talk about sound
Yep.
healing. That's one of the pillars of Ayurveda, which is breath, food, and vibration, which is sound.
Mm-hmm.
Want to say anything about that? I mean, that's
Yeah, I know. It's just, yeah, very, very fascinating. And because there's so much power in the words that we use as well, and so much with the vibration of the different words that we're using and how that can impact us. And yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
there's a great Henry Ford quote, and I know people think Henry Ford. I mean, I don't know. I have no feeling, yay or nay, whether he was a good guy or a bad guy. But
Yeah.
he has a good quote, and he's right. It says, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
It's so true. Yep.
I tell my
Yep.
students that all the time when they're laying on their mat. They're like, I can. I'm like, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Yep. And this is where like I'm really, really passionate about self-talk and changing that self-talk, because it really can completely change your life in terms of whether you feel like you have the confidence and the ability to do certain things or not.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, even just with depression and anxiety and things like that, I've read quite a few books over the years about how to deal with that. And there was one particular book, I can't think of what it was called right now, but self-talk was a major part of that, because I've kind of learned over the years that I can talk myself out of kind of panic moments and depression and things like that by the way that I'm talking to myself. It has so much power, the words that we
So much
use.
power. So
Yeah.
much power. And I like that she talked about the inversion of the L and the V.
Wasn't that
Because we're
interesting? Yeah,
polarized, right? We're in a polarized planet. So it makes sense
it
that we
does.
could invert these words, these L's and
Words.
V's, to create two totally different polarities of
And
the.
it's like God and, well, not that God and dogs are really opposite, but that's always an interesting one too.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And also one of my favorite slogans from a company is Nike's "Just Do It," because
Yeah.
I have to tell myself that a lot, because I will talk
Yeah.
myself out of doing things sometimes, and it's like, just fucking do it, like just do it,
Yeah.
you
Just
know,
do it already.
just
Yeah.
do it. And so so yeah, so Paula, we have a meeting in like 20 minutes. So I guess we'll go ahead and end this, you guys. We'll plan a part two to keep going through this article. But this article brought a lot more commentary than I thought it was going to originally when
It really did.
it's
Yeah.
important.
But obviously, yeah,
It's important.
needed to be covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you guys do us a favor, because we do deal with shadow banning. If you like this video, please share it. Please give us a like on both of our channels. The more likes we get, or a dislike, it doesn't matter. If you
Very,
dislike it,
yeah.
helps us too. Helps
Yeah. Feedback.
yeah, and leave a comment. If you can't comment because of the country you're in and the rules and regulations, just leave us your country flag. And that
Yeah.
helps the algorithms, because we want to wake up as many people as possible. We want to get out of this nonsense. The truth of the world is just another matrix. That's all it is. And we want to be free of both. We want to be
Yeah.
free. We don't want to have to adhere to somebody else's rules about living. We want to be free within ourselves. And so, let's try to wake people up so that we can truly be in a world where we're kind to each other, where we give each other space, where we don't try to piss on each other by who's right and who's wrong and end up causing trauma.
Yeah.
Let's get out of our egos and just get into our bodies and support each other, and I read The Greatest Thing, Paula, on one of these personal trainers that I'm paraphrasing, I follow. He goes, you're never going to have a successful person, that he was talking fitness wise, you're never going to have a fit person criticize your workout schedule. You're never going to have a wealthy person criticize your business plan. Well, the same is to be said. People who are working on themselves are never going to criticize your attempt to work on yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So whether you're starting with us on the Esoteric Academy, or you, after this episode, you decide to put your shoes on and take a walk, you're not going to get criticism from Paula and me over that.
Definitely not.
So
we're happy that you're starting.
yeah, that's
and it
what we
doesn't matter where you
want.
start. It doesn't matter what age you are, what you're starting with, even if you're just walking around the block or to your letterbox and back. It's
I don't
something.
care if you're 300 pounds, 400 pounds. If you put on your pair of walking shoes and just walk to the box and back today, and that's all you could do, and that's your starting point, I am so
That's
excited for
amazing.
you. I am so excited for you, right? Because you're starting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
that takes a lot of courage
yes,
to do that.
there's a lot of courage. So remember that you're never going to have, if you tell your truth or friends today that you're going to start working on yourself and you're not going to be all involved in the conspiracies anymore because you want to work on the greatest conspiracy, which is your own truth, and they criticize you, just know you're not going to get criticism from people who are doing the work too.
Yeah.
In the yoga
Because they
shala,
understand the journey.
yeah, in the yoga shala, whenever we have new beginner courses start and new students are in the lobby, they always are intimidated by the more advanced, more experienced students. But in the lobby, the more advanced, more experienced students are usually the ones that will go and speak to the beginners and welcome them and ask their name. It's usually the ones that are in like third series that are the first to go up to a beginner in the lobby who's just learning their sun salutations and introduce themselves and ask their name and welcome them to the shala. Because even though the more advanced student is doing Cirque du Soleil type work on their yoga mats and has like a six pack, they're just so excited that you're starting. Because at one point they were starting their journey too. At one point they were.
We know what it's like.
Yeah. So just remember that, guys. You're never going to get pushback from people who are also doing the work.
Yeah.
Never
And
going to
like,
get fun of from people.
and I might be more experienced with some forms of healing work, but Bryce is more experienced at me than exercise. I'm still pretty much a beginner with the whole exercise thing, but I have never once felt judged by Bryce. And she's seen me work out in the live classes, and I've never once felt judged. And, we're all just on this journey together. Like, like as Ram Dass says, we're all just walking each other home.
Yeah, we all start somewhere, guys. Every single person has to start somewhere, has a starting point. And my first yoga class, I could barely touch my knees because I had back surgery. Now my leg goes easily behind my head. Right?
Yeah,
Change is
that's
possible.
amazing.
It's possible. And yeah, you're never going to get judged from people who are actually doing the work. Even though they might look really intense in their practice and look really fit. No, they're not judging you because they're proud of you that you're starting. It's hard. They know it's hard and you did it. You made that decision. So remember that as you're going forward, guys. And once again, we would love to have you join us tomorrow, Friday, the 23rd at 5 p.m. Email either Paula admin at the esotericacademy.com. Or if that's complicated, you can always come to me at esotericatlanta@gmail.com and I will forward you the invitation and I'll send all that to Paula. So we would love to have you. Please don't be afraid. We have an incredible group of people. Listen, as I tell beginner students too, when you're in a group exercise class, whether that's yoga or whatever, everybody is so worried about their own selves doing it right so that they don't look stupid. They're not even paying attention to you. That's the wonderful thing. The ego, that fear that you have, guess what? Everybody else is dealing with it too, so no one's paying attention to you. So please don't worry. The only person paying attention to you is the teacher because they have to make sure you're safe, first and foremost. And again, if that's still too intimidating, you just turn your camera off. Totally fine. Baby steps, baby steps. As long as you're there and moving, that's all we're happy about. So, all right, you guys. Well, I guess we'll end it here. And
thanks for joining us.
Can't wait to hear everybody's thoughts down in the comment section below. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you later.
We'll see you next time.